Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NFL slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Week 13. We're going to run through position by position, talk about some of my favorite plays at each position for this Week 13 slate. We will hit on Draftkings, and we'll talk about some guys that I do like over on Yahoo as well. Just a few things before we do get started. As always, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. Make sure you click that subscribe button as well if you are new to the channel and you have not subscribed yet. Would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. Link is down in the description at DFS by Noah. I am very active over on Twitter. If you ever need to contact me or you want to message me, you can do so on Twitter. My DMs are always open. Another thing, I am launching my Patreon page on probably Sunday afternoon, Monday night. I forgot to remind you guys. I will be launching that with my NFL and NBA content. I'm going to have a lot of exclusive NFL and NBA content over there. I'm going to have bundle packages so you can get both sports for a really cheap price. I'll keep you guys updated, but most likely Sunday or Monday is when my Patreon page will be launching, and my content will officially start on Monday. I might launch the page on Sunday, but I won't start providing content until Monday. But I'm still very excited to launch this Patreon page with all the content I'm going to have over there. It's going to give you guys more in-depth analysis on each players that I like on all the players I like. More videos that you can access rather than just the videos you get on my YouTube channel. I'll have exclusive videos over there on Patreon. So very excited for that. Most likely launching on Sunday or Monday. Definitely would appreciate it if you guys would support me over there. At least just check out the page and see what I have to offer. But let's go ahead and start off at quarterback. At the top, you do have Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson as our two expensive options this week. So I definitely think this is probably a week, especially in cash games. I mean, there's a couple clear values I like at quarterback this week. I don't think paying up at cash is going to be the optimal route. I have a feeling both these guys are going to be relatively low owned. I mean, Mahomes will probably, rarely do you see quarterbacks get like more than 20-25% over ownership in tournaments. I imagine Mahomes will probably be like anywhere between like 10 to 15% owned in tournaments. Lamar Jackson, I have a feeling, is going to come in somewhat low owned this week, just given the tough matchup against the 49ers. And factoring in ownership, especially because I probably will only have exposure to these two guys in tournaments, I really like going to Lamar Jackson this week, even in a tough matchup. I mean, Lamar Jackson just has such a high floor, such a high ceiling. His rushing upside sets him over the top of pretty much every quarterback in the league, especially for fantasy. You're pretty much getting a 20-point floor for Lamar Jackson this season. He's got 30, 35-point upside, some of the most upside we've seen out of any quarterback for fantasy. So factoring in ownership and just how I project these two guys, I would imagine I get more Lamar Jackson this week in my tournament lineups. Mahomes is obviously a great play here at home against Oakland. I mean, Oakland's pass defense is really bad. They've really struggled against the pass. They've been actually a pretty solid run defense this season. Mahomes is in a great spot, but I just like the upside that Lamar Jackson brings to the table. I think he gives you more upside than Patrick Mahomes, even in a tougher matchup. And factoring in the $400 savings, I think I'd rather go to Lamar Jackson if I'm paying up at quarterback this week, especially like for tournaments. Same could be said on Yahoo. There's a $1 difference between Mahomes and Jackson on Yahoo. I think people will probably just play Mahomes because he's in the much better matchup. But still, I like the upside that Lamar Jackson gives you. Talking about the expensive quarterbacks, I like Jackson a lot over Mahomes. There's really not much I like in the 6K range between like Rodgers, Murray, Winston, Mayfield, Darnold, Jared Goff. Like, none of these guys stand out to me as core plays, as like players I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. If I'm not paying up for Mahomes or Jackson, I'm definitely looking under 6K. I think there's a lot of value we have at quarterback this week. Carson Wentz against the Dolphins. I know Carson Wentz was terrible last week against the Seahawks. He looked really bad, but this is a great matchup for him against the Dolphins. We saw what Baker Mayfield did to that Dolphins team. Carson Wentz is firmly in play for me this week. Nick Foles, I like a lot at home against the Buccaneers. Really good spot there for him. We know how good that Buccaneers run defense is, but their pass defense has really struggled this season. They've been one of the biggest pass funnels we've kind of seen just for past 3-4 years. I mean, no team's been as good as the Bucs have against the run, and then like as worse as they have against the pass. So Nick Foles is in a really good spot. At 5,700, he is firmly in play. Even someone like Derek Carr against the Chiefs as 10-point underdogs, you expect them to be throwing a lot. Carr is a guy you could look to. You got Kyle Allen at home against the Redskins as well for 5,500. Those guys I like for value. And then under 5K, there is a really cheap play I want to talk about. So Andy Dalton's 4,700 on DraftKings. He is going to be starting for the Bengals. He's taken over the job. They gave it back to him since Ryan Finley just really didn't do much. I mean, I don't know why they benched Andy Dalton in the first place. He wasn't really the problem there. I mean, he was playing well this season, especially for fantasy. He had been good this season. They benched him, and after that Week 8 loss to the Rams, they let Finley. I think Finley's played like the last 3 games. He's really done nothing, so they're going back to Andy Dalton. Now we're getting Andy Dalton for 4,700 on DraftKings at home against the Jets. Really good spot for him. Really good spot for this Bengals pass, or just their passing game. I mean, getting Dalton back under center is a big boost for Alden Tate, a big boost for Tyler Boyd. You could even argue it's a boost for Joe Mixon as well. I like Dalton a lot as a value quarterback this week. I honestly think he's going to be probably one of my higher-owned quarterbacks, which is crazy to say, but the price is just so good. The matchup is so good. I mean, this is a guy that gives you 20, 25-point upside, and that's really hard to find quarterbacks under 5K. I think Dalton is firmly in play as one of the better cash game quarterbacks this week. Just usually always I try and find value at quarterback for cash, and Dalton really stands out at 4,700. On Yahoo, I think it's the same story as well. Dalton's minimum salary for a quarterback, he's $20. I like him a lot over there, and I'm definitely going to have exposure to him in my Yahoo lineups. But if I'm not going to Mahomes or Jackson on Yahoo, obviously I like Dalton at 20. Kind of the same could be said in this mid-range. I do want to talk about Deshaun Watson. So Yahoo does have that Sunday night game on their main slate. I think Deshaun Watson, even in a really tough matchup against the Patriots, kind of the same can be said with him as it is for like Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson's in a tough spot against the 49ers, but Lamar Jackson just has so much upside that he's firmly in play for me. Same could be said for Watson. Watson's in a tough matchup, but he just has so much upside with his floor, his rushing ability. $32 on Yahoo. I do like him quite a bit at the quarterback position. Nick Foles at $30 against the Bucs. I like a lot if you're going to him. I think he's firmly in play. Even Tom Brady in that Sunday night game. I know Brady hasn't shown much upside just this season, at least for fantasy. I mean, rarely have you gotten big games from Brady. His biggest game this season was 25 fantasy points. But this is a game I think has a lot of shootout potential. We can look at the Vegas odds right now. This game does have a 45 total with just a 3.5-point spread. So project to be a relatively scoring high game and expect to be close as well. Tom Brady in that Sunday night game is firmly in play for me on Yahoo at $29. And you also got Kyle Allen at $26. Derek Carr is $28. So there's plenty of value at the quarterback position on Yahoo. I really like going to Andy Dalton, though. If I'm going to go for value, I think I might just punt all the way to the bottom with Andy Dalton against the Jets. But I think that's just kind of where I'm looking to at quarterback this week. Moving on to running back, this is definitely going to be a Christian McCaffrey week for me. Last week, I think, was like the only week this season that I didn't play Christian McCaffrey in my main lineup. It was just really tough to get him in. There were better plays for cheaper, like points per dollar wise. I don't think that's the case this week, especially with some of the value we have at quarterback. There's some cheap receiver plays opening up that are very strong, so I'm going to be jamming in CMC this week on both sites. He's 10.5 on DraftKings. He's $42 on Yahoo. He's going to be a core play for me on both. I mean, I don't need to tell you that Christian McCaffrey's a good play. He's a good play every week. I don't care what matchup he's in. I mean, the dude just gets so much volume that he gives you such a high floor, such a high ceiling. It was a tough matchup last week against the Saints. He still went for still got 22 carries, only 64 yards, so it wasn't very efficient, but he did get into the end zone. Also had a receiving touchdown as well. 9 catches for 69 yards. I mean, McCaffrey's floor is just so high. This is a great matchup at home against the Redskins. As 10-point favorites, you expect Christian McCaffrey to be fed in this game. Probably going to get 30 touches. The Redskins' run defense is not good. Love Christian McCaffrey here. It's pretty easy to fit him in and like the rest of your lineup this week, so definitely going to be jamming in CMC. But if I'm not going to CMC, or if you're not looking to CMC, just other options for a little bit cheaper. Saquon Barkley, he's really struggled lately, but he's firmly in play for me this week at home against the Packers. This Packers run defense has struggled this season. The way you beat the Packers is through the run. They do have a pretty good secondary, some pretty good corners. They've been a pretty big run funnel just so far this season. You've had some pretty tough matchups for Saquon just the last 2 weeks. I mean, on the road against the Jets sounds like an easy matchup, but the Jets have actually been pretty solid against the run this season. The Bears have been improving against the run as well, plus on the road. Now we're getting Barkley at home against a pretty big run funnel in the Packers defense, so I like Barkley a lot. We know the usage is going to be there for him. He's going to get probably 15 carries. He's probably going to get 6-8 targets as well. 20 touches is close to a lock for Saquon Barkley. So I like him a lot at 7,400. If I can fit him in cash with Christian McCaffrey, I will try to do that, but there are some very strong running back options I like in the 5K range That's probably the route I'll take, but we'll just kind of have to see as I build out my lineups on Sunday if I can land on both of those guys. But then you got Le'Veon Bell, who's also firmly in play against the Bengals. I like that matchup a lot for Le'Veon Bell. We know the touches are going to be there for him. The volume's going to be there for him. He's had some tough matchups this season, but the schedule is definitely getting easier for him. He had some tough matchups at the beginning of the season. Now the schedule's starting to get really easy for him, facing the Dolphins in Week 9, the Giants, the Redskins. Now he gets the Bengals, which have been pretty much one of the worst run defenses in the league, along with the Dolphins. Le'Veon Bell, we know, is going to get probably 15 carries. He's going to get a ton of work in the passing game. He's not going to be very efficient. He's probably only going to average like 3 yards a carry. But his volume is just what sets him over the top of most running backs. 7,200. I think I feel a little bit better with Saquon for 200 more, but Le'Veon Bell is firmly in play if you want to go to him in that 7K range. Josh Jacobs, I imagine, will come in really low owned this week. People will probably just play Le'Veon Bell for 300 more, Barkley for 500 more. Jacobs, I like this matchup for him against the Chiefs. Only concern is that as 10-point underdogs, we've seen games this season when the Raiders get behind, Josh Jacobs just doesn't get the work. I don't really count that game against the Jets last week because they just got blown out in that game. Only 10 carries, 34 yards for Josh Jacobs in that game, just one target. He just doesn't get a lot of work in the passing game, and if the Raiders get behind, they will use Jalen Richard a lot in the passing game and just kind of take Josh Jacobs off the field. Now, it's a really good matchup. The Chiefs have struggled against the run this season, so that definitely that's in Josh Jacobs' favor. But when you just factor in the other running backs we have, like Bell, who's game script proof, Barkley, who's game script proof, I should say, it's hard for me to have a ton of confidence in Josh Jacobs, but I imagine he will be very low owned, so I guess there is some appeal in tournaments when you just factor in the ownership. But for cash, I totally would go to Bell or Barkley over Jacobs in cash games. But I do want to talk about some of these 5K options at running back. There's a lot of options in this 5K range that are very strong this week. So we'll start off with Kenyan Drake. I like Kenyan Drake a lot this week at home against the Rams. His workload seems very secure since he got traded to the Cardinals. Even with David Johnson healthy, they haven't been using David Johnson at all. I think Chase Edmonds has a chance to return this week, which would definitely cut into some work for Kenyan Drake. Let me check that real quick, see if... Yeah, so Edmonds is going to play this week. He was a full participant in practice. I still expect Kenyan Drake to be the number one running back to get the majority of the work. We can look up his snap counts just the last few weeks. I know they've been very, very high. He played 88% of the snaps last week in Week 11. Only 64% in Week 10 against the Bucks. That game, he wasn't very efficient in that game, but he still did get a ton of work in the passing game. He's probably going to play anywhere from 70 to 80% of the snaps. David Johnson just hasn't been involved. I imagine they'll use Chase Edmonds a little bit, but it's clearly Kenyan Drake's backfield. And he's had some really tough matchups the last 3 weeks against the 49ers, the Bucks, and the 49ers again. Those are three of the tougher matchups you get as a running back. Now he gets a Rams team that we saw got absolutely torched on Monday night by the Ravens. Mark Ingram ran all over them. I think Kenyan Drake's going to have success in this matchup. His volume just puts him in play for me. He's going to get a ton of work in the passing game, which is very valuable on DraftKings. You want to get those running backs on DraftKings that have pass game usage, just with it being a full PPR website, or the full PPR scoring, I should say. But then three more running backs I'll talk about in this 5K range. So Miles Sanders, 5,400, assuming Jordan Howard sits this week. I love Miles Sanders at 5,400. I've played him the last 2 weeks with Jordan Howard out. He's been okay. It was a tough matchup against the Patriots. He only got 11 carries, 38 yards. He did get 4 targets in that game, just 6 DraftKings points. Against the Seahawks, he could have had a much better game than he did. Carson Wentz missed him on a pretty easy walk-in touchdown. It was like a screen pass, and he just overthrew Miles Sanders. Sanders should have had a touchdown last week. He still finished with 11.6 DK points. Got 12 carries, 63 rushing yards. Against the Seahawks, also got 5 targets, 3 catches for 23 yards. This is probably the best matchup Miles Sanders is going to get all season. If he's going to continue to play 80% of the snaps, which is what he's been playing just the last few weeks, I'll look it up real quick. So just the last 2 weeks with Jordan Howard out, you've had Miles Sanders playing 85 and 84% of the snaps. If Howard sits again, I imagine we get similar usage for Miles Sanders. It's a great matchup against the Dolphins. Love him at 5,400. He's probably going to be in my cash game pool, especially if Jordan Howard is out. Also, I do want to talk about Ronald Jones and Phillip Lindsay. These are the last 2 guys I'll hit on. So Ronald Jones at 5,100 is probably going to be really low owned this week, but I like his matchup a lot against the Jaguars. Jacksonville has really struggled against the run this season. We saw what Derrick Henry did to them. They've been a pretty just overall tough or pretty or like overall a pretty like rough defense. I mean, their defense has definitely it has went downhill since like they traded Jalen Ramsey. Their defense has just been going downhill. So really like Ronald Jones. He's going to be low owned. I don't think I'm going to go to him in cash, but he's definitely going to be in my tournament player pool. Phillip Lindsay, though, is firmly in play for cash this week. 5K at home against the Chargers. This is another team that's defense has been just going downhill. Phillip Lindsay, I believe he went off against the Chargers earlier this season. Yeah, in week 5 against the Chargers, he had 15 carries, 114 yards. Did have a rushing touchdown. Also got 4 catches for 33 yards, 27 Draftkings points. This is clearly Phillip Lindsay's backfield as well. They've said that he is the starter. You just look at his snap count percentage. I mean, since playing about 50% of the snaps just like through the first 9 weeks of the season, the last 2 weeks he's gotten 64 and 54% of the snaps. So the snap percentage is increasing for Phillip Lindsay. He's their number 1 back. He's only 5K on DraftKings. He gets work in the passing game, which we love. It's a really good matchup. The Broncos are at home as well. Plus, they're getting Drew Lock under center, which is definitely a boost for them since Brandon Allen has just not been good at all. I like Phillip Lindsay quite a bit. It's between him, Sanders, and Kenyan Drake, like in terms of cash game running backs. Like if I can get McCaffrey, Saquon, and then one of those 3, that's what I'll probably be trying to do in cash. But if I can't, I'm totally fine playing 2 of those 3 with McCaffrey for cash games because I think all 3 of those guys are very strong plays. But I think that's it for running backs. Going over to Yahoo, I do want to talk about Miles Sanders. I think he's definitely going to be a core play on Yahoo. I mean, he's $16 over there. He really stands out as just one of the better like running back points per dollar wise. I think Barkley is a really good option at $30, and I will definitely have lineups where I go with Barkley as my RB2. Like you can get Barkley in there at 30 and then still fit in some good receiver plays. And I think I'm going to stick with Barkley, I'll stick with Barkley in the core, but I really like Sanders as well. You just look in this mid-range. I mean, there's very strong options here. You got Drake at 17, Ronald Jones is 16, Miles Sanders is 16. So I think all those guys are strong options. It's a tough matchup for Leonard Fournette, but I did want to talk about him on Yahoo. He's only $21. I mean, he's really, really cheap, even for a tough matchup. We know that Leonard Fournette is going to get a ton of volume. I mean, last week against Tennessee, he got 24 carries and 12 targets. I mean, the dude's going to get close to 30 touches, if not more. Even if they get behind, they'll use him in the passing game. They'll feed him if they're up and with a lead. I know it's a tough matchup, but the price tag, the volume that Fournette gets, I think that outweighs the matchup. So $21 on Yahoo. Leonard Fournette is firmly in play for me. Even Todd Gurley and Phillip Lindsay, both at 21, I think are also in play as well. I do prefer Fournette over them just given his usage, but both those guys are firmly in play. I have a feeling, though, I'm probably going to be going McCaffrey, Barkley, and then Miles Sanders on Yahoo. That's probably going to be the 3 running backs I have the most exposure to. It's pretty easy to get McCaffrey, Barkley, and another running back with some pretty good receiver options as well because there's a lot of cheap receivers I like on Yahoo this week. But now we're going to move on to receiver and talk about the receiver position. So on DraftKings, if I'm paying up at this position, my favorite option by far is Davante Adams at 7K. I like him a lot here against the Giants. I expect him to be pretty popular this week. I think he's going to be in my cash game pool, probably going to make it into my cash game lineup. I mean, he's really hard to avoid in this matchup. With the volume that he's getting, double-digit targets in 4 straight games. He's had some really tough matchups against the 49ers. I mean, against the Chargers was a pretty tough matchup. Since coming back from injury against the Chargers, 49ers, and Panthers, I wouldn't say those are tough matchups. I mean, the 49ers is definitely a tough one, but against the Chargers and Panthers, it's kind of like a mediocre matchup. Now he gets one of the better matchups this season facing a Giants team that just has a really bad secondary. They don't have any good corners. They've been one of the worst pass defenses this season. Love this spot for Davante Adams. He's severely underpriced on DraftKings. I think he's one of the better spend-up options at receiver for 7K, and I like him quite a bit. Now on Yahoo, I think it's a bit tougher to get to Davante Adams because he's priced up to $31. Don't see myself playing much of him over there. I think Tyreek Hill is actually my preferred option if I'm going to pay up on Yahoo because he's $30, whereas on DraftKings, he's clearly the top option, $1,200 more than Chris Godwin. He's $8,900 on DK. Going to be pretty tough to get Hill in on DK, but pretty easy over on Yahoo. DJ Shark, especially if you're playing Nick Foles, I like DJ Shark a lot at $6,600. Since Nick Foles took under center just the last 2 weeks, DJ Shark has gotten 21 targets, 33, and 10 DraftKings points. We saw at the beginning of the season when Nick Foles was healthy, he was targeting DJ Shark a ton. I expect that to continue rest of season. It's a really good matchup against a bad Bucs pass defense. So really like DJ Shark at $6,600. He's firmly in play in that 6K range. In the 5K range, I definitely want to talk about Tyler Boyd. So I really like Tyler Boyd this week against the Jets. I'm definitely going to be stacking him with Andy Dalton quite a bit. I think in cash games you can stack Boyd with Dalton. It makes plenty of sense. Usually I don't force stacks in cash games, but this is a week where I really like that stack, and it's really cheap as well. I mean, we saw at the beginning of the season when Andy Dalton was healthy, Tyler Boyd was targeted a ton, getting double-digit targets every week. Since Ryan Finley took over at center, I mean, his numbers have gone down. You just look at the last 4 games, I believe all 4 of those games, or the last 3 games, Ryan Finley's been under center, and Boyd's put up 12, 2, and 23 Draftkings points. I mean, this is a great matchup for him against a bad Jets secondary. The Jets have one of the worst secondaries in the league, one of the worst pass defenses. So love Tyler Boyd, love that he's getting Andy Dalton back under center. I'm definitely going to have exposure to that stack a lot. That's probably one of my favorite quarterback receiver stacks this week, especially when you factor in the salaries. Tyler Boyd's really cheap on Yahoo as well. He's $16. Going to have a ton of Dalton to Boyd stacks over on Yahoo, especially for value. If I'm trying to jam in the expensive running backs and I need some cheap quarterback, or I need a cheap quarterback and some cheap receivers, that's the combo that I'm going to look to the most. But then the next guy I want to talk about, I imagine he's going to be really popular. I mean, he should be. If he's not, I mean, people are dumb. But Sterling Shepard at 4,900 is one of the top value receivers this week, in my opinion. We already know that Golden Tate is going to be out. We did get that news right before I started recording this video. Also, Evan Ingram and Rhett Ellison are both going to be out as well. So the Giants are down to Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and I can't even remember it's like Smith or something. It's like Braden Smith. I can't even remember what his name is. Let me look it up real quick. Caden Smith is the tight end for the Giants. So those are the pass catchers that the Giants have here for this matchup against the Packers. I expect Sterling Shepard to play a ton in the slot. He's going to go back to playing mainly in the slot now that Golden Tate is out. He should be able to avoid Jair Alexander as well since he'll be in the slot. He's going to see a ton of volume. He's really hard to avoid this week on DraftKings at 4,900. He's one of the top cash plays. I think he's a great tournament play as well, especially because I like Devontae Adams so much. So that way, if I'm playing Adams, I can run it back with Shepard. I can run it back with Barkley. Sterling Shepard, I think, is a great play on Yahoo as well. He's $17. Still feels a little bit too cheap over there. He should probably be like $21, $22. So you're definitely getting a bargain on Sterling Shepard on both sides. His snap percentage is, I mean, it's already incredibly high. Like last week, he played 95% of the snaps. I mean, he's going to be on the field a ton. With Golden Tate out, the target should be there as well. I believe like the first 4 games this season when Golden Tate was out, we saw what Sterling Shepard did. I mean, 6 for 42 against Dallas, 7 for 100 against the Bucs with a touchdown. He got 9 targets pretty much since Daniel Jones took over at center. Like those weeks 3, 4, and 5, Daniel Jones was under center in all 4 of those games. Or he's been under center like every game that Sterling Shepard has played this season besides week 1. And Shepard's gotten 9 targets in every game, so it's pretty easy to project him for 8 to 10 targets here, if not more. At 4,900, I mean, love Sterling Shepard. Really hard to get away from this week. He's one of the top plays on the slate at receiver. But we will talk about one more value play. I think Chris Conley's firmly in play as a value for 4,500. He's not going to be in my cash pool because, I mean, Sterling Shepard's clearly the better cash play for $400 more. But in lineups where I had Nick Foles and I want to stack him with like DJ Shark or Chris Conley, I mean, Chris Conley firmly stands out as like a stack with Nick Foles. He's gotten 8 and 9 targets just the last 2 weeks since Foles took under center, 11 and 9 DraftKings points. It's a really good matchup against a bad Bucs defense, bad Bucs secondary, I should say. So Chris Conley is a good value as well, especially if you're playing Nick Foles. But let's go ahead and move over to tight end. We'll run through the tight end position real quick. So this is definitely a position where I'm going to be looking for cheap. I mean, there's some good cheap plays we'll talk about. Before we get there, though, I mean, at the top, you got Kelce, Ertz, Kittle, your normal options here. If I'm paying up at tight end, I think Travis Kelce is by far my favorite option, especially when you factor in price. I mean, both him and Ertz are in really good spots, but I do prefer Kelce. I think his upside's a little bit higher here against the Raiders. It seems like every time he plays the Raiders, he goes off. I think he's played the Raiders already once this season. Yeah, he played him in week 2, and he had 7, 107, and 1. Got 9 targets, 26 DraftKings points. Even going back to last season, Travis Kelce really crushed the Raiders whenever he played them. He's been coming on as of late as well. The last 2 weeks, 20 and 22 DraftKings points. He's gotten a touchdown the last 2 weeks. Honestly think he keeps that streak up and he probably scores again this week. If I can find a way to fit him in my tight end player pool for cash, I'll try to, but rarely do I pay up at tight end in cash games, and I don't think I'm going to be able to this week. Now on Yahoo, I think it's a much different story. Kelce is 28, Kittle is 24. But then you have Zach Ertz all the way down there at 19. I honestly think Zach Ertz is probably going to be my highest owned tight end on Yahoo. He's really hard to avoid at that salary. He's just way too cheap. We do know that Nelson Aguilar is going to play. We don't know yet if Alshon Jeffrey is going to play. With just how thin the Eagles are in terms of pass catchers, I expect Ertz to see a ton of volume regardless if those guys are healthy or not. I mean, last week got 14 targets. He's gotten double-digit targets in 3 straight games. It's a great matchup against the Dolphins. Love Zach Ertz at $19 on Yahoo. On DraftKings, I do prefer Travis Kelce for just $500 more. But I want to talk about some of the value that we have at this position. So a big injury that broke like last week or towards the beginning of this week was Eric Ebron got placed on injured reserve. That's going to open up Jack Doyle to play a lot more snaps and probably see more volume as well. We can look at his snap percentage just so far this season. I mean, since the T.Y. Hilton injury, you're getting about 65 to 70% of the snaps played for Jack Doyle. I imagine with Eric Ebron out, that number increases, and his target projection should increase as well with Eric Ebron out. Plus, we do know that T.Y. Hilton is going to be out for this game as well. So Jack Doyle should see plenty of volume. He's dirt cheap on DraftKings at $3,300. It's a pretty good matchup against the Titans. I like him on Yahoo as well. I mean, he's $13 on Yahoo. He's a fine value, but if I can get Zach Ertz for just $6 more, like I would much rather just play Zach Ertz. If I have to downgrade a defense or something to get up to Ertz, I'm fine doing that because I think Zach Ertz is just clearly the best play on Yahoo. Now on DraftKings, though, where Ertz is priced up, Kelce's priced up, I'm fine playing a cheap tight end like Jack Doyle, especially for cash games. $3,300, Jack Doyle is one of my favorite values. I think Noah Fant, especially now that he's getting Drew Lock under center, that should be a boost for him, and he's seen a ton of volume since the Emmanuel Sanders trade. He's been playing a lot more snaps as well. We can look at his snap percentage as well just real quick. I mean, just the last few weeks, he's played 80, 86, or 82, 86, 86% of the snaps, so Fant's going to be on the field a ton. He should get targeted. The Broncos will probably be playing from behind in this game. I believe they're underdogs if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the Broncos are 3-point dogs, so there should definitely be some pass attempts for Drew Lock. He should be looking to Noah Fant just with how thin the Broncos are in pass catchers. So he's also a pretty good value. I definitely feel better going to Jack Doyle for cheaper, but I did want to talk about Fant. And then the last guy is a punt tight end. So as of Friday afternoon, we don't know the status of Gerald Everett yet. He did not practice on Thursday. There's a pretty good chance he misses this week. If he is out, you do have Tyler Higbee for $2,500 in like the best possible matchup a tight end can get against the Cardinals. I need to look at Higbee's snap percentage these last few weeks. So just the last few weeks, let's see. Week 11, he did play 76% of the snaps. I'm not sure when or if Gerald Everett got hurt in that game. I'll look that up real quick. Yeah, so Gerald Everett only played 25% of the snaps that week. So pretty much Tyler Higbee was on the field whenever Everett was off the field. If Everett misses, we're probably going to get Tyler Higbee playing 80, 85, maybe 90% of the snaps. He got 6 targets in that game against Baltimore. This is like the best possible matchup for him. I'm totally fine punting tight end and playing Tyler Higbee at $2,500. We know how bad this Cardinals team is at defending tight ends. I think Higbee is firmly in play this week if Gerald Everett sits, and he honestly might become one of the best value tight ends along with Jack Doyle. I will definitely have exposure to both of those guys, and both of those guys will be in my cash game player pool. But let's go ahead and run through defense real quick just before we end the video. So I usually always try and punt off defense, go cheap. Just look for cheap defenses at home that I think have upside. And there's 2 that really stand out to me. The Ravens at home against the 49ers and the Chiefs at home against the Raiders. I think both those defenses are probably going to be the defenses I get the most exposure to. On Yahoo, I don't see myself getting to the Ravens much because they're priced up to $18, but the Chiefs are really cheap on Yahoo at $13. If you want to punt on DraftKings, I think the Cardinals, especially with how bad Jared Goff has been, with how much he's turning the ball over, the Cardinals defense at home for $2,300 is firmly in play as a punt defense. I mean, I feel on Yahoo I'm probably just going to be playing a lot of the Chiefs at $13. Maybe the Broncos at $12. I mean, Phillip Rivers just has not been good lately. He's been throwing a lot of interceptions. He'll take sacks as well. Going into Mile High, I know the Broncos don't have the elite defense that they used to have, but still, I think the Broncos are in play for $12. So for Yahoo, I would say the Chiefs and the Broncos are my 2 favorite defenses factoring in salary. On DraftKings, probably my 2 or 3 favorite defenses would be the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Cardinals. That's probably where I'm going to be looking to the most, but I usually just get a lot of exposure to a bunch of different defenses. Like if I'm playing 10 lineups, I'll probably play, or like the max exposure I'll have to a defense is probably like 20%. Like rarely do I go more than 25, 30% on any defense because it's just such a hard position to predict. But I think that's it for this Week 13 slate, guys. I think we covered everything, talked about my 5 plays for both sites. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. As always, I would greatly appreciate it if you would drop a like down below before you get out of here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. You can also follow me on Twitter as well if you have not done that yet, at DFS by Noah. Link is down in the description. Very active over on Twitter. Also, I will be launching my Patreon page soon. I just want to remind you guys one more time. It will be launching either Sunday afternoon or Monday morning, late Sunday night, Monday morning. Somewhere between that time. Check down in the description of one of my more recent videos. The link isn't there now because I haven't launched the page yet, but the link will be there probably Sunday. I'm going to have a ton of NFL content, ton of NBA content over there. It's going to be really cheap packages available. I'm going to have written articles, updated core plays, like cash game player pool, some of my favorite GPP plays. I'll have private videos as well, talk about roster construction, talk about ownership, like who I expect to be high owned. Just going to be a ton of content over there. So would appreciate if you guys do decide to support me over on Patreon when that page does launch in the next couple of days. But good luck this week, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.